Brian, Robb, Jay King, and Sam Packard present Steel Bottle, Steel Bottle, Boston Celtics, Steel Bottle, Steel Bottle. Oh yeah! Steel Bottle, Steel Bottle, Boston Celtics, Steel Bottle, Steel Bottle. And a 19. Jaylen Brown, D. White, Crazy Joe. Steel Bottle, Steel Bottle. When Tatum coming back. Ooh, go. Steel Bottle, Steel Bottle, Steel Bottle, Steel Bottle. Boston Celtics, Steel Bottle, Steel Bottle. Oh yeah!
Come on, long shorty. I want to win. Don't get the next generation.
Let's go, your family fan Celtics. Let's go, baby. Let's go. Your family fan Celtics. Let's go.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Still Potable. My name is Brian Rao from Mass Live, joined by the kid, Jay King of The Athletic. This is a free episode of Still Potable, so you can find us here on the Celtics CLNS YouTube page, and we are brought to you by Prize Picks. Use CLNS code as a code to get $50 in lineups when you play your first $5 lineup. We are also on Patreon. You can get us 2 times a week in our free feed, but if you want to get us every single day, you can go to patreon.com/stillpotable. Monday through Friday, game recaps, mailbags, behind the scenes stuff. You want to sign up there to check it out as the season goes on. But Jay, you are here. We have not talked to you since we heard from Brad Stevens. We also heard from Jaylen Brown a little bit today as well. So a pretty busy week here in Celtics land, despite not many games.
I feel like every week's a busy week for Jaylen these days. He's out there streaming, out there sharing stories, giving thoughts. I feel awkward right now. I am walking right now on a treadmill desk.
Are you going to be able to sustain this?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
How's the cardio?
I mean, I wouldn't say it's cardio. I'm walking 2 miles per hour. So it's not a lot, but there's a lot of hectic. My place is pretty hectic. The in-laws are over. My son is in my normal workspace, so we've got the treadmill desk in the guest bedroom. So I'm in there right now because one of our rooms you don't know whether you're going to get the Wi-Fi. So I had to get good Wi-Fi, and so here I am, walking on the treadmill desk, baby, getting my steps in. But yeah. Jaylen Brown, the most notable thing he said to me was that he thinks Jayson Tatum might set the record for quickest return from a torn Achilles. Obviously, there's been a lot of positive signs about Jayson Tatum's recovery, from the videos that he's put out to Brad Stevens even pointing out that they haven't applied for a DPE, which they still have time to do, by the way. I believe the application is due by January 15th. Right. So they could theoretically still change their minds. But even the fact that he was willing to say that is like, that was the first real tangible sign, I thought, that they expect him back this season. Because until then, Stevens had said nothing but the timeline is, we're not going to put a timeline on it. Basically like putting no pressure on him whatsoever. But this time, he still said there's no timeline, but he deviated from that just a little bit to say, like, yeah, you guys can all see it. We haven't applied for a DPE. And obviously, one of the reasons to do that would be because, Jayson Tatum is expected to return at some point. He would have to be, I forget the exact wording on it, but he would have to be expected to miss through June 15th, more likely than not, or something like that. To miss until all the way through June 15th. So they don't think that's the case, at least right now. And he's fighting to come back. And Jaylen thinks he's going to come back soon from the sound of it. What is the world record, by the way? What is the record for quickest Achilles? I know Drew Scott is playing like after 9 months, or started playing after 9 months or whatever, 8 months maybe.
I thought it was like for football. I know, like, was that Cam Akers or something like that? Came back something crazy, like 7 months, I want to say. But we're talking about basketball here. Like, yeah, that's a different category than than football, obviously, given the amount of movement and stress on every single play on your Achilles. So, yeah, it's certainly like Jalen's been, he obviously Tatum's been with the team all year pretty much. I'm sure Jalen's had a front row seat to every step of his rehab. And while it's interesting to hear, I mean, Packer and I talked a little bit about it yesterday, just like Brad Stevens lay out the in-depth, progression of like what needs to get done here for Tatum to actually return. But it's clear that, from a strength standpoint where Brad Stevens he's still at here, like I'd imagine he's, not the end of the line there, but he's not probably too far away from getting up to like, 2-on-2 and 3-on-3 stuff once he checks all those boxes. And so it's going to be for Jaylen to think now that, this could be one of the faster recoveries ever. It'd be like what I think 9 months, probably that, right? So that would line up with February for an NBA player.
Yep, and any sooner than that, you're talking maybe January, which seems soon. Like January, obviously, just a couple weeks away, and based on what Brad said, there are still a lot of boxes to check. So who knows? It would only be speculation on my part. I'm not going to speculate on when that will come, but like it's been 7 months now, I believe, since his injury, and there have been nothing but positive signs from very early on, from like how the surgery went, when the surgery happened, so soon after the injury, to now, Jaylen, who obviously sees Tatum working out every day, rehabbing every day, is like, yeah, that dude is itching to come back, and could come back sooner than people expect. So don't want people to get too excited, but I think there's a lot to be excited about there.
I mean, that's as optimistic as you said, like as you'll get from Brad Stevens. Like it wasn't even optimistic; it was just like referring to the possibility of, or it's like an acknowledgement of it, which they wouldn't go anywhere.
It was his first acknowledgement, right?
Yeah, and he would be, and he's a cautious guy in general. Like he's not going to do that unless he feels pretty good about it actually happening. And the disabled player exception stuff he brought up, I mean, I understand what he did there. To be honest, like that's something you'd never expect them to do in the first place because of just where they are from a financial standpoint this year. Like even if they had that used to that, like they still have their mid-level exception too, but they're not spending that because they're well into the repeater tax already. So that's every dollar you spend of that year, it's like you're spending $4 or $5. But on top of that, it is just the knowledge, like, yeah, we were never going to shut the door on a Jayson Tatum return this year, like to go over to open the possibility of us getting a guy who can fit into a $13 million time slot. No, we'd much rather have the realist like that, carried out there for Jayson Tatum to chase all year long, and obviously the hope that he gets there. And now that appears to be stronger than ever.
Yeah, good things. And we've been super positive, I feel like, on the podcast for a while because, I mean, they won 10 out of 12 games. They've lost 2 in a row since. But we've been super positive. I think today we should look at some negatives, or at least gauge some possible negatives moving forward, some possible concerns moving forward that the Celtics have. So I came up with a few things that I want you to give me on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the most concerned you could possibly be. How concerned are you with this? So let's start with Celtics defense, which is currently 18th, has dropped all the way to 18th in the NBA, and has been bleeding points for a little while now. How concerned are you with the Celtics defense?
I'd put it at a 6. I think this is going into this season. I feel like this was probably the area I was more worried about for them, in terms of just sustaining, because of the size issues they have kind of up and down their roster right now with Tatum gone and obviously with several parts out. Now they've been able to counteract that early with, forcing a bunch of turnovers. But now I think that has started to wane a little bit, and you're still the same recurring problems are there. So it's like, I don't know, like, do I feel good about them solving the problems within the defense that are there right now? No, unless Jayson Tatum is going to be back, and then, you know, sooner than later, like that's stuff that's going to be there for a little while, I think, at this point.
Yeah, I'm with you. And there are ways that they could like juice the defensive numbers, but it would come at the expense of the offense. Like you could play Xavier Tillman. You could absolutely just plug him in. That would fix some of your defensive issues in the second unit, but that would also limit what has been an incredible offensive unit in those small lineups with Josh Minot at center. The biggest concern to me is that over the last 10 games, the Celtics are just 20th in opposing turnover rate.
Yes.
Like they are not forcing nearly as many turnovers as they did early in the season when they were super disruptive.
Why do you think that is?
That's a good question. I think it could be partly due to the small lineups, like
Right.
just not having as much size out there. You have to play differently. But to me, when you have those small lineups, you should be using your speed. You should be going after guys. You should be ramping it up and trying to create turnovers and playing fast. And that hasn't really happened. And I just feel like that's the biggest, because this team, they need to force turnovers. Like that's one way they're going to survive defensively, because it's like you have one center who's playing right now. It's Nemi. Other than that, you're playing all wings and guards, and you have to be disruptive. You have to, you know, be out there just mucking the game up, and they haven't done enough of that. So I'm concerned about it for the Celtics. I think this is something that's going to stick, especially like they're not going to move away from the small lineups. They're not. Their net rating without Luka Garza on the court this season as a team is plus 10.1. Plus 10.1.
That's a top 5 team in the NBA, or probably top 2-3 team in the NBA.
That would be like historic net rating. Like very few teams in the history of the league have had a net rating like that. And I think net rating is a little juiced these days because there are like 8 teams, 10 teams that are just trash, objectively terrible. But still, like that would be really, really, really promising.
Yeah, that would put them second in the league.
If you just take
to do that.
If you just take out the Luka Garza minutes, and he hasn't played for a while now. And so there are a lot of positives to the way they've played. But for that defense to climb from 18th and realistically to be any sort of contender, even in the East, I think you can't have a defense that poor. You can't. And this team, to me, like they would have a chance in any playoff series, and they should be shooting to become that type of contender, at least in the East. And right now their defense hasn't been good enough, hasn't been disruptive enough. Maybe they need more Ugo. Maybe they need more Minot. Maybe they need to rely more on those athletic balls of energy that you know can change games. But right now that's slipping in the wrong direction, and that's a concern for me. All right, next one. It's sort of similar, but those small lineups have been very good. We talked about the net rating without Luka Garza. Part of that is because Josh Minot at center has just worked. How concerned are you that success isn't sticky, and that the more they play that unit, the more they'll get exposed for being so small, the more they'll get exposed for not having enough size, for not having the defensive rebounding, for going with a unit that's basically like you have to score a ton of points?
I'm going to go with 8 there.
8.
And I'm going to go with an 8. And I'm going to tell you why in a minute after we hear from our sponsor here at Prize Picks. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. It is the holiday season, the best time of the year for sports. Bowl games, basketball matchups, playoff pushes, it's all happening at once. And while you and I are out there making decisions every day, what gifts to buy, what to eat, which game to watch, there's one place where it feels good to be right at Prize Picks. Now, Prize Picks, it's a great time of year to get on it. It's becoming available in more and more spots around the country. California's the last place it was. So you can, whether it's basketball games, obviously NFL playoffs coming up, a lot of good places to use it. And they have a lot of things you can do it for. I love how straightforward it is. You can spend a lot of time. You don't have to spend a lot of time calculating your payouts. Makes it easy with the payout multipliers, whether it's 3 times or big 2,000 times. Prize Picks makes it easy to understand how much you can win. And now they have early payouts too. So if the lineup gets off to a hot start, you may have the option to cash out these winnings before the game even finishes. So download the Prize Pick apps today. Use the code CONS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CONS50 to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. All right. Here's why I'm going higher in this. Small lineups is great, but it's literally their only option right now off the bench. And that is a problem because certain teams, certain nights, you're going to get into trouble there, especially on a team where defensive rebounding was going to be a big problem to begin with. And on top of that, the wings in this lineup, Jay, they've all been hitting threes at a pretty impressive rate. A lot better than their career averages through the first, that 10-2 stretch here. That I expect to come back down to earth at some point. And then that's when, okay, you're not scoring at the level offensively you are with that group. And you're also kind of showing off your holes as more film gets out on that group on the defensive end as well. So it's like, for me, that's a grouping you want to be able to play all year, but I don't think you want to have other options right now, and you have no other viable options right now off the bench based on what the numbers are so far. So that's why I worry about playing that group a little bit too much.
Yeah, and I think there are just certain matchups where it's just hard. We saw it the other night against Detroit. Isaiah Stewart comes in, manhandles Josh Minott for a rebound, and Joe Mazzulla takes out Josh Minott, gives him an earful, and it's like, honestly, it didn't look great. He got the ball ripped out of his hands, gave up an easy dunk, but it's like, what do you expect when Josh Minott is against Isaiah Stewart? There are just shortcomings that are going to be tough for the Celtics to overcome with that group. Their shooting, their scoring has been like beyond elite with Minott at center. According to Cleaning the Glass, they're scoring 131.2 points per 100 possessions with him at center, which is just insane. They're in the 100th percentile that those lineups are for effective field goal percentage at 63%, which is insane. And they've been like very good positives during those minutes, but you do wonder like what happens to them if they have a stretch where those groups don't shoot well, because like they're not doing well on the glass with those groups. The offensive rebounding with those groups has really gone away. 22.8% offensive rebound rate with that group, which isn't good enough. And so I'm not super concerned because it has been really helpful and the overall numbers look great, but there are just some parts of the success there that I think are a little wobbly and could come undone. It's like a Jenga tower. and like it could fall down. It could fall down. So yeah, that's the part that I worry about. And like you said, they just don't have any other options. Like you can't Luka Garza, we've already talked about the numbers with him, or we've already implied the numbers with him on the court, really bad. And Tillman is just like, you don't get a lot offensively. So the only way to address that is at the trade deadline, and which I think is a possibility, which Brad Stevens left open as a possibility. And if that happens, then you'd get a lot more size, you'd have more length, you'd have a better chance on the glass, and you'd have a better chance to overcome the nights when you're not necessarily shooting at an extremely high percentage. So
Do you think there's a chance? If you're Brad Stevens and it's January and they go into a little bit of a slide right now, do you think about not making a splash move for that, but being like, hey, can we find someone around the league that's making the minimum or like very little, so we can just do it like one for one, or do you have to wait because you don't have many assets regardless, and you obviously want to see where Tatum's at, and this team's not good enough to just make a short term Band-Aid move like that.
They've tried it before with Mike Muscala. They've tried it before with Xavier Tillman, and the types of guys you get if you're just going small fish hunting are small fish.
Yeah.
To me, the types of guys, the types of big men they should be going at are the difference makers. Like if Zubats is available, go after him. Try to do whatever you can. And if you can somehow get under the tax and pick up Zubats, go for it. If you can go after Gafford to me is a step down from Zubats. But like if you can go after Gafford and he's available and you can shed salary and have a home run trade where you get out of the tax and add a worthy center, go for it. Like those are the types of deals I think they should be looking to make. Like bringing in another guy, like you might as well just play Tillman. Honestly, I think like that, or play Amari Williams. See what you have in Amari Williams. He's shown a little bit of promise. He has the size, athleticism, and strength that you'd want. He's a great passer. There's obviously a lot for him to learn, but I think unless you're getting someone who's like a starter caliber or close to it, I think you just stay with what you have and maybe give Amari Williams a shot if you need it.
I know one guy, Michael Scotto of Hoopsite, I think he wrote about him earlier this year that Celtics had interest in last summer, was Daron Sharp with the Nets. And so I think that's the kind of guy you wonder if and he's only making like $5-6 million. So I'm sure the Celtics were probably interested in him. Obviously they were only offering really minimums over this past summer. He was able to get a little bit more of that. So yeah, that's the threshold of guy where it's young, intriguing enough, maybe a breakout candidate, like obviously Kate has been, you find there. But yeah, other than that, given where the team is with the tax stuff, I'm with you in terms of you kind of have to, even if you bring in a guy in a minimum, they still have an open roster, so they could just straight out, sign a G League guy, so whatever. But that's costing you're spending 4 times actually what you're paying that guy when it comes to taxes. So until you get, unless to think that guy like that could be a real difference maker, that's the only reason we want to pay for that. Other than that, you want to go take address your finances in other ways to make the spending for that hurt a little bit less, or B, just, like I said, trade for the guy that can help you now in the future, as opposed to the short-term Band-Aid, whether that's using Simon's deal, whether that's another type of trade. Who knows? Maybe you package a couple guys at the end of the bench and, clear out a roster spot and spending that way. They'll obviously have plenty of ways to kind of figure out how they want to do that in the months to come. But the longer they wait now, the more pressure that falls on Minot and Jordan Walsh and obviously Keita, and God forbid Keita gets hurt at this point, then I don't know, you're starting Xavier Tillman for the rest of the season. That's going to be a dicey proposition.
They did play okay when Keita was hurt
Yeah.
for a couple of games earlier in the season, and that helped them stumble into those smaller lineups that we've talked about that have been successful so far. Although we do have questions about how much of that will continue. All right, next concern. You just talked about what happens if Nimi goes down, but I think Jaylen Brown has missed 1 game. Derek White has played in every game. Peyton Pritchard has played in every game. Anthony Simons has played in every game. What happens to the Celtics? How concerned are you that their success so far is a product in some ways of just having everybody available in a conference and everybody but Jayson Tatum? And that's a huge absence. I'm not glossing over that.
Yeah.
But of the guys that were healthy coming into this season, everybody has basically been available. How concerned are you that one injury, the wrong injury, could topple this thing for, a couple weeks, a few weeks, and in a conference where they're in fourth place right now, one game up on ninth. How concerned are you that stretch could push them into the play-in rather than the playoff race?
4. It's a lot lower than like before the season started. That would have been top of the list, but now 2 things have happened to change that. One, they actually have wing depth now, which
A lot of it.
Like embarrassment of riches potentially wing depth for compared to what we thought they had at the beginning of the season. So that makes you think, yeah, like if Jaylen goes down, that's a different category. But like, could they survive for a couple weeks without Peyton Pritchard or Derek White? Like now, like and play 500 ball. Like I would say, yeah. And 2, to be honest here, like I'm not like the caliber of guys they have a lot of durable players like Derek White, very durable. Peyton Pritchard, very durable. Jaylen, yeah, he's had his injuries, but all those guys are playing. I know they're carrying a heavy load. The usage obviously for Jaylen is sky high, but he's still only playing 33 minutes a game, which is a very manageable number. And same for White and Pritchard. You've seen, I guess, in a couple like these relays games where he's been up to like 40 minutes. I feel like in a couple of these games where it's against the Pistons or the Raptors for the break, where they've had a lot of rest before and after those games. Like you can see Joe kind of ratcheting up. I thought it honestly would have to be more of that all year long for them to be at a record like this, but the fact that it hasn't makes me think that this is, they could stay afloat if one of these guys goes down for just a medium strength, medium length of time.
I think they could be in trouble, honestly. Like a real extended absence, like 3 weeks. If Peyton Pritchard was out for 3 weeks, that would put so much pressure on their other shot makers. Because really, like they have 4 shot creators. They have Simons, Pritchard, White, and Jaylen. And there's a lot of responsibility on those guys because the others, as promising as Ugo and Jordan Walsh and Josh Minot have been, they are not going to be high usage guys. They are not going to create offense themselves. They are going to be functions of the offense, and they've helped, and that's awesome. But it just puts so much pressure on the other guys, and defenses will be able to kind of latch on to that, I think, if they lose one of their primary playmakers. It could be Pritchard. It could be White. It could be Jaylen. And I think that would be really tough to overcome because we've already talked about the defense and how many holes their defense has. Now, if you have the 18th ranked defense and you're losing one of your main offensive hubs, then I just think there's possible trouble there. And they've been really, really lucky, with the exception of Tatum, obviously, to have everybody available pretty much every night. But if you lose one of those guys, or if Nemi goes down for 2 or 3 weeks, like you might lose 60, 70% of those games that you play during that stretch. And because the East is so jumbled, that could be enough to push you down the standings. So I just think it's a real concern. I think there's been a lot of good fortune for them so far. And even though the depth has stood out and emerged, and they're in a much better place than I expected heading into the season, I still think that it could be trouble time if just one of those guys goes down. All right. Next possible concern that's actually been an awesome strength so far. How worried are you the amount that the Celtics rely on Jaylen Brown to hit like 55% of long twos and just hit extremely tough shots throughout games, throughout the season? Like, what happens if that goes away? Will that go away? And how much would it hurt the Celtics if it does? How concerned are you?
Not concerned. Yeah, that's like, I'd put that at a 7 because he is just making it a staggering amount of the mid-range. And it kind of reminds me of 2 years ago, like during like last year, it felt like that was something that this team was missing through a lot of the year. And obviously Jaylen was hurt for a huge chunk of the second half of the season. So that played out with what her shooting numbers were, but he has done this when he has been healthy for incredible stretches throughout his career. And we has like not to this level, like because we, just with the amount of options the Celtics have within their offenses before, like he hasn't had to go to this, but he's clearly comfortable in those spots. But he is going to come back down to earth a little bit there. But even if he does, like again, the fact that guys like White and Pritchard have not played like above their head too much left, like they haven't had to carry things, like their numbers are regressing in the other way, makes me think that the Celtics will, maybe take a little bit of a dip, but probably be okay as Jaylen comes down a little bit from this, because the offense has been good enough in other areas where they can afford, I guess, a little bit of a dip here and not, fall off the, again, I don't expect them to finish to be a top 5 offense all season, but should they finish in the top 10, even with some regression here? I'd say, yeah.
I'm with you on this one. I don't think this is a huge concern. It's probably been unsustainable. Like, will he shoot in the 50% range for the entire season on long twos? Doubtful, just because nobody does. But if you look at his track record, like this is a guy who's been comfortable in that range for a long time. 2022-23, he was 47% on long twos. 2023-24, 46% on long twos. 2020-21, 49% on long twos. So he's had a lot of success from that range before. This is something that before the injury last year, I think, I don't want to say mastered, but he became elite at creating enough separation, getting to his spots, and knocking those shots down. I thought it was a huge piece of their title run, obviously. Like when they needed a basket in game 3 of the finals, when everything was falling apart, they had a 20-something point lead. It was Jaylen. It was Jaylen from the elbow. And so I think this might not be real, but him being a very good long 2-point shooter is absolutely real. And I would throw Peyton Pritchard in the same category. Like, he's hit an insane amount of mid-range jumpers so far, but it doesn't seem unsustainable. Like, he's bumping people off. He's getting to his spots. He's showing feathery touch. Like, he's just really good at that. And so could they lose like some of those shots every once in a while? Yes, absolutely. Jaylen might not be, the evolutionary son of Kevin Durant and Dirk Nowitzki forever, but he's also just really good at that. And the way they're playing gives those guys the space to operate in there. And I just think that part is real. That part is very real.
And you brought up game 3 of the finals. So I think like that's what separated Jaylen a lot throughout his career here. Like getting those type of shots in the playoffs and being able to make like that is a difference maker. And a lot of guys, high scoring guys, hit the playoffs and see their numbers fall off a cliff. But Jaylen's able to get to those spots throughout, whether it's regular season, postseason. And so that he's got a track record of that. I mean, he's probably like top 3, top 5 guy in the league you trust in that, like, range right now, it feels like.
Yeah. And like you said, like with the notable exception of the Heat series when everything just went wrong for him. He was turning it over a lot, shot very poorly. And last year when he was beat up, like he's always been able to carry over his efficiency from the regular season into the playoffs, which is very rare. Like a guy of that caliber, usually because you're playing better defenses, because the scouting reports are better, because the intensity is higher, you lose some of that efficiency, and he never has. And I think that's been a huge help for them this year. Like he's had to take on one of the highest usage roles in the entire league. He's creating for himself as often as anybody, I would guess. And for him to still be as efficient as he is, for him to be able to scale up the way he has, and not just now, but for his entire career, that bodes well for the rest of the season. And I just think right now, the way he's playing, there are a few people who can stop him from getting to his spots. And once he gets to his spots, he's proven he's going to knock it down a fair amount of the time.
So would this be at the bottom of our list of concerns then?
Yeah,
For
which is
interraces?
funny because like I do think it will tail off. I just don't think it will matter a whole lot because he'll still
Agree.
be very good at it, and he'll still make enough that it will be able to carry them and get them through stretches where other guys might not be hitting. And so I just believe in it. Maybe more than I should, but I believe in it.
One other thing I want to bring up, if I was gonna, if out of this list in total, you brought it up, but what I would have brought to the table was what you brought up initially was just the drop off and falling, forcing turnovers. I think is like the biggest concern I probably have right now in terms of what they need to get back to. And one number, just looking through it here, did you know that like Ugo's net rating right now is 12.6, like second on the team behind Nemi, and he's only playing 11 minutes a game there. So I do wonder here. I mean, I guess we saw some of this in the Pistons game where he obviously started the second half with foul trouble, but I wonder if that's something where they try to unleash him a little more, knowing that that's an area where he can really do it. And then like the fact that you're going so much small ball, like obviously Minot's not on the ball much like he was earlier in the year, and that was a guy who I felt like was good for a couple steals a game. So I wonder if like how they'll look at that or just say, hey, we just have to be more aggressive here, guys. Like Joe Mazzulla obviously had a couple weeks for them to practice here right now. How they kind of come back out on Friday night for the in that area.
Yeah, it's interesting, like how differently they can play depending on who Joe puts on the court. Like they can go to lineups that have Jaylen at the 4 and Simons and Pritchard and White, and like you're not going to be forcing a ton of turnovers. You're not going to be getting a ton of offensive rebounds, but you'll be able to score like crazy. And then on the other hand, like you say, like to create more chaos, all you have to do is throw Ugo in there. And I do think that at some point he'll get more playing time, and maybe it could be because they do have an injury at some point. Maybe it could be because Joe notices what we have, and it's just time for them to ramp up the defensive intensity, to create more turnovers, and to kind of activate that area again. And we're saying this after like the worst 20-second stretch of his career so far, which was the end of the third quarter when he got blown by for a layup. They put him in for the last 2 possessions of the third quarter. There was like 15 seconds left. He got blown by for a layup, then got stripped for another layup. But that's okay. The bigger sample size, Ugo has been very good. He's been very effective. And he's definitely the type of chaos agent. Like you throw him in there, you're going to get more deflections. You're going to get more steals. You're going to be playing in transition more often. You'll have some moments where he fouls too much. You'll have some moments where, he makes rookie mistakes like he did at the end of that third quarter. But I also think, yeah, like good things happen when Ugo's on the court, and I wouldn't be surprised if Joe goes to that more often.
Yeah. Well, he'll have his chances this weekend. They've got 3 games coming up in 4 nights, starting with Miami on Friday night. We will be all over for you guys. Again, starting next week, you can catch us out at patreon.com/stillpotable for new episodes Monday through Friday. You can catch us here on CNS Celtics YouTube or on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts if you want to get our free episodes a couple times a week. But that will do it for us, Jay, unless you got any other concerns. You made it very well on the treadmill for 40 minutes here. I mean, I don't even think
walking treadmill is a beautiful thing, man. This is how you get your steps in while being productive. I feel like Mark Cuban because he used to do all his interviews while he was on the treadmill.
Listen,
I'm basically an NBA franchise owner who never would have traded Luka Doncic
or Jaylen Brunson. Potentially the Celtics. That was a fun little nugget in Adam Hill's Box Globe article that came out earlier this week. That as a Celtics target that ended up being Derek White. But regardless, thanks for listening, everyone. We will be back with you guys next week. And thanks to Jay and for myself. We'll talk to you guys next week.
Steel bottle, steel bottle. The boss tells the steel bottle, steel bottle. Oh, yeah.
Slow down from eating and drinking and all that wild stuff.